Mary had a little lamb.
False. We believe that all men are created equal.
To the magnificent mosaic that is America.
From radio beacon to radio beacon. I have a dream today. Change has come to America.
Believe me.
Help is on the way.
Knock, knock. Who's there?
It's a figment of your imagination.
Randi Rhodes Show. Turn up your mind.
Oh, my God. Welcome to the hamster wheel.
Excuse me. Back up, back up, back up. Thank you. Back up. Back up. Thank you. Everybody get back.
Folks, don't get
back.
hurt. Don't get hurt.
Everybody get
Where
back.
are we?
Everybody get back.
Where are we?
Excuse me. Excuse me. Please respect the space. Excuse me. Please respect the space. Everybody get back. Everybody
Come on, guys.
Everybody get back. Thank you. Thank you. Everybody
Hold
get
on.
back.
Is this us? Hey, just want to say, tell everybody, it live stream on Getter right now. Everybody watching in the war room. We're here today. I don't want anybody to take their eye off the ball of what we do every day. Okay? We got the Hispanics coming on our side, African Americans coming on our side. We're taking down the Biden regime. Every day, the focus, you got Raheem Kassam today, you got Dr. Peter Navarro, Captain Bannon. You're going to have Boris Epstein, the whole show. Intense. We got polling out, economic data out. Everything. I want you guys to stay focused, stay on message. Remember, signal, not noise. This is all noise. That's signal. Thank you very much.
Oh, my God. I mean, who arrives at the FBI building to surrender yourself with a podcast crew in tow? I mean, that is what Steve Bannon did this morning, and then he went into court, just came out of court a few minutes ago. And while all the reportage actually indicates that he was very courteous and deferential to the judge in the courtroom, he came out of the courtroom and decided, hey, let's do a fundraiser.
I'm telling you right now, this is going to be the misdemeanor from hell for Merrick Garland, Nancy Pelosi, and Joe Biden. Joe Biden ordered Merrick Garland to prosecute me from the White House lawn when he got off Marine One. And we're going to go on the offense. We're tired of playing defense. We're going to go on the offense on this and stand by. By the way, you should understand Nancy Pelosi is taking on Donald Trump and Steve Bannon. She ought to ask Hillary Clinton how that turned out for them, okay? We're going on the offense.
Okay, how did that turn out for them? So let's see. You got convicted of, or were going to get tried for committing fraud against your own peeps, your own viewers, your own podcast listeners, for bilking them out of $1 million under a fraud called We Build the Wall. You got pardoned by the then president, Donald Trump, and now you're being charged with contempt of Congress for failing to show up, and you're threatening Nancy Pelosi and name-checking just about every Democrat in the Congress for what? For you failing to show up in response to a congressional subpoena? You have to show up, Steve. That's the law in this here country. You have to show up. A grand jury just indicted you for failing to show up. This is all about money for them. They have no limits. They have absolutely no limits. Now, it is a misdemeanor to, violate a congressional subpoena. Who knew? But it's I did. But it's a misdemeanor. It carries with it, as you know, 30 days in jail, up to a year. And he's been charged with 2 counts, so he could face up to 2 years in prison for violating the congressional subpoena that he received. Now, if he wants to go in there and claim, oh my God, executive privilege, the man has not been in the executive branch since what, 2017? He was fired by the president of the United States, then Donald Trump. I don't even know how he thinks he has the ability to claim executive privilege when the privilege is controlled by the executive. The executive currently is Joe Biden. Joe Biden did not order you to be prosecuted. Congress did, because they issued you a subpoena to appear and another subpoena to produce documents. You did neither of those things. And the truth is that if you wanted to claim executive privilege, how, I don't know, you had to show up and invoke it, and you didn't bother to show up. This dog and pony show is all for money. It's all for fundraising. It's all to get Al-Qaeda. It's all to get the base. It's all to, scream and yell that we're in some sort of an existential struggle. A jihad, everybody, which also translates from Arabic into English as the struggle. This is so unbelievable. So he decided that he would be respectful in the court, who then would release him on his own recognizance, and the arraignment hasn't occurred, so he hasn't entered a plea. The arraignment will be on the 18th of this month, and then he'll have to enter a plea. And of course, he decided that he was going to make himself, the martyr, make himself the victim. This is what that group does. They accuse everybody of everything that they're doing, and then when they get caught, they're the victims. They're the victims. They're the ones that are being wronged. They're the ones that are martyring themselves on the altar of free speech. They're the ones who have, this is just so, it's so wrong, and it's such a disservice to Americans. It's bizarre, but here you go.
There is nothing criminal about any conduct that occurred in this case, and when we respond to Merrick Garland, we say apply the law equally. They don't have. Who else did they prosecute for invoking executive privilege in a criminal prosecution? Read the Department of Justice Office of Legal Counsel letters. It's unconstitutional according to their own opinions from some real luminaries, including, by the way, read the Office of Legal Counsel opinion by Eric Holder for the Obama administration, the Fast and the Furious case. This is unheard of, to force a person to violate the invocation of executive privilege. By the way, the court, of course, hasn't ruled yet in President Trump's case, in Trump versus Thompson, on whether executive privilege applies. But even beyond that, the Office of Legal Counsel opinions make clear that it applies to discussions with former government officials, and that makes sense. It makes sense because we often see former officials kept in the loop that the president needs to consult with. And whatever you happen to think President Trump talked about at the time, that's what executive privilege exists for, so that people can speak freely with the president, talk about strategy matters, and talk about national security.
This is a group of people that planned a violent coup, okay, and knew in advance that it was going to happen.
It's not going to happen like you think it's going to happen. Okay, it's going to be quite extraordinarily different. And all I can say is strap in. The War Room, a posse. You have made this happen, and tomorrow it's game day. President Trump's presidency. His first term's ending with action, and his second term's going to start with a bang. Okay? That we can guarantee you. And so the fight's in. This is a huge weekend. There's so much going on behind the scenes. A massive fight. We're heading towards a historic day, the 6th of June. Massive rally.
January.
There's a lot happening this week. People are getting revved up. People are getting fired up. People are getting madder, as they should. You and I happened to be on a call last night, and you were walking people through. It was so brilliant. Could you just walk people through what the framework is for this week? A lot of tough hombres down there. I saw some of them last night when we had meetings down there close there. Came out last night, and let's say they were still up and going. They were still reviewing their plans for the day at like 1 and 2 in the morning. We've helped provide the information. I think that people are jacked up. We're all going to converge on that point on the 6th. We're all going to converge there.
This is the 4th.
We just got to impose our will. It's like in football. You have to impose your will on the opposition. We're hurtling towards an historic event on January 6th. We're hurtling to something that's going to, it's going to be complicated, and it's going to be nasty. Nothing could be more turbulent than what's going on this week. We want everybody in the Mid-Atlantic region to come. You've got to be there. This is going to be historic. Remember, this is a historic week. This is like towards how the Republic fell, right, and became a totalitarian or authoritarian empire. We're at that moment, and that's what this week is. Are we going to affirm the massive landslide of Donald J. Trump, or are we going to turn over a constitutional republic to the forces of, what did Figaro say, the forces of darkness? Massive constitutional fights going on behind the scenes. People don't understand. After hours, we're on Skyping, and they put these calls in Lackawanna County, and to all these, patriot groups around and conservative groups who see through in the fog of war is that have clarity.
This is all recorded on his podcast. January 2nd, January 3rd, January 4th, January 5th. He was not part of the administration. He was a podcaster. There is no executive privilege. This is fundraising.
All things Randi at RandiRhodes.com.
Go for launch.
Speaking truth to power, the Randi Rhodes Show.
Are we going to affirm the massive landslide of Donald J. Trump? Or are we going to turn over a constitutional republic to the forces of, what did Vigano say? The forces of darkness. Massive constitutional fights going on behind the scenes. People don't understand. You know, after hours, we're on Skyping these calls in Lackawanna County and to all these, patriot groups around and conservative groups who see through in the fog of war is that have clarity. It's to have clarity that January 6th was going to be the day or one of these big days, and you had to converge everything down to January 6th. This is a wound that will not heal. We are hurtling towards a constitutional crisis that is going to make the impeachment look like a Sunday picnic. This is going to be a historic day. You're going to be part of history. We want as many people to get here as possible. 48 hours away from one of the most consequential days in American history.
Oh, my God. So, shadow of forethought, right? I mean, no, Steve Bannon was on these Skype calls, obviously, telling these patriot groups to go to Washington on January 6th and then telling his audience that they were that, strap in. It's going to be, like a day for history. It's going to get violent. Strap in. And, Congress has every right to subpoena him to tell what he knew. Who did he talk to? Who was he organizing? Who told him to organize? Did anybody tell him to organize? These are questions that deserve to be answered because that attack on January 6th was not an attack on Joe Biden. It wasn't an attack on the Democrats. It wasn't an attack on anything. It was an attack on our Constitution. It was an attack on our whole country, everyone in it, everybody that lives here, everybody that believes that peaceable assembly does not look like beating police officers with crutches and flagpoles and all that, right? And Steve Bannon just refuses to show up because those tapes are deadly. Those tapes are so incriminating. And the idea that he has some privilege in the commission of these crimes is bizarre. It's bizarro world. Now, here's another question you should have in your head. How in the hell does Steve Bannon say executive privilege extends now to Roger Stone? Or that conversations he had with Rudy Giuliani are covered by executive privilege, even though we know that he wasn't part of the executive branch for many years when January 6th occurred, and he's thinking he could assert executive privilege without showing up, which is bizarre and bogus. How in the world, if he thinks he has executive privilege in his warped 67-year-old grody mind? I mean, you could smell Steve Bannon from here. He showed up in court like that today, too. It's just, he's just so vile. But how does he think that executive privilege protects any conversation he had with Sidney Powell? Or any conversation he had with Roger Stone? Or any conversation he had with Rudy Giuliani? Or any conversation he had with Bernie Kerik? Rudy Giuliani, I mean, it's just, I don't know. It's very bizarre, the amount of vitriol that comes from these people and the amount of victimhood they claim for themselves when they get caught trying to overthrow the results of a free and fair election, trying to overthrow the government, trying to stop Congress from doing an official proceeding to certify the electoral vote count. It is just this whole country is becoming so radicalized that if we don't reset really soon, we're going to see a lot more of those kinds of things, a lot more violence, a lot more hatred, a lot more threatening everybody. Flight attendants. There was another one over the weekend where a flight attendant had broken bones from the result of a violent passenger. You've got threats at school boards. You got threats now against secretaries of state. You got governors being threatened with kidnap and trial, extrajudicial trials, and then we'll kill her. We'll not only be the jury, but will be the hanging, executioner. Whatever. I mean, it is so amazing. And in the same moment that I'm looking at the people who literally encourage violence from their Al-Qaeda, from their base, that literally encourage it, organize it, deploy it, and then deny that they had anything to do with it, or deny that they're liable, or deny that they even have to answer a question about their culpability. We're also seeing two trials continue in different states, right? The Rittenhouse trial, They're in the prosecution in the Rittenhouse trial, the state of Wisconsin, essentially, just concluded their closing argument to the jury. They're in a break. And then the defense will make its closing argument to the jury. And then remember, because the prosecution bears the burden of having to prove Kyle Rittenhouse did these things with malice or with, reckless disregard for human life or with intention to provoke people by wearing this gun an illegally gotten gun, wearing it to what was obviously a protest, to protest against police violence against Jacob Blake, who was simply trying to break up a fight, over there. And the police showed up and shot him 7 times in the back. And Jacob Blake, to this day, is paralyzed, right? Because the police just decided to shoot. And that's what this protest in Kenosha was, sparked by. And then Kyle Rittenhouse decided, he was watching it on TV, that he would take an AR-15 that did not belong to him, that his friend bought and was being kept in his friend's stepfather's basement. And he would go to Kenosha with that AR. I mean, the parenting here, Dexter is going to be a better parent to Harrison than Kyle Rittenhouse's mother was to him. But so the defense is getting ready to make its, Did you watch? Have you watched?
Not yet. I'm getting pressure from all sides on this one. I'm going to crumble. I'm going to cave soon, and I'm going to get in on it.
So I waited till Jessica came. Jessica came home this weekend. She came home Saturday for the Thanksgiving, right? For the Thanksgiving. And so I promised that I would watch it with her, so we were able to watch. And then Howard was in New York this past weekend for his grandson's 2nd birthday. Mm-hmm. And so everybody was in the same house last night, finally. And so we watched the 2 episodes that are available. And I'm telling you, it all deals with, can I be a good parent? So far, that's what I got from the Dexter. No spoiler alerts. Can I be a good parent? The answer clearly for Kyle Rittenhouse's mother is no. No. But when the defense begins its, closing argument, we'll air it for you. But then I just want you to understand that the prosecution gets a second bite at the apple. Why? Because the prosecution has the burden of proof. Now, there's another little thing I have to throw in there with the Rittenhouse matter, and that is this. If you were watching this morning and you saw the worst judge in the world, this Judge Schroeder, try to give jury instructions to this jury, and you have any legal background whatsoever, you were cringing. You were sitting there cringing in absolute horror. This judge is literally the worst judge I have ever seen in my entire life as a defendant, as a plaintiff, as you name it. As somebody who follows trials and likes true crime, holy crap, you're in a whole different league now.
Call in, connect. To speak to Randi, call 561-270-3844. 561-270-3844.
After the shooting, you run around those cars and head back towards the direction you originally wanted to go to, right?
Yes.
So those people didn't stop that, did they?
They weren't there after I shot Mr. Rosenbaum.
They scattered after you fired your gun 4 times, didn't they?
Yes, they weren't there anymore.
And you've heard Dr. Kelly's testimony that the first gunshot from you to Mr. Rosenbaum caused Mr. Rosenbaum to start falling to the ground. Did you hear that testimony?
I did.
And then you continued to fire 3 more shots into him after that, didn't you?
I continued to fire until he was no longer a threat to me.
When he's falling to the ground in front of you, he's no longer a threat to you. His pelvis is broken, right?
I don't know.
But he's fallen to the ground, isn't he?
I saw him ledging towards my gun, and I remember his hand on the barrel of my gun.
Because he was trying to push it out of the way so you wouldn't shoot him.
Jackson, also speculation.
Stand. What was the risk to you of death or great bodily harm at the moment you killed Joseph Rosenbaum?
If I would have let Mr. Rosenbaum take my firearm from me, he would have used it and killed me with it and probably killed more people if I would have let him get my gun.
Mr. Rosenbaum never said anything to you about taking your gun, did he?
He didn't say anything, but he tried to take my gun.
And whoever's got that gun is a threat to everyone else?
If he would have taken my gun, he would have used it against me.
Okay, so what the defense was able to show, or what the prosecution, the state of Wisconsin, was able to show today was a frame-by-frame video that clearly showed that Mr. Rosenbaum was nowhere near Kyle Rittenhouse. Kyle Rittenhouse lied, and he lied hard, that Rosenbaum was unarmed, and Kyle Rittenhouse knew that he was unarmed, and he was far away from Kyle Rittenhouse, so far away that he could not have presented any threat to Kyle Rittenhouse at all in any way, shape, or form, and that Kyle Rittenhouse concocted this story because he shot an unarmed dude. He just shot an unarmed man. Now, he was caught in cross-examination, lying a whole bunch of times.
The crowd that are asking you why you just shot someone, right?
Yes.
And you told him he had a gun.
At the time, I was a little dazed, and I was thinking of Mr. Zeminski with the pistol he had at the Duramax.
Ah.
So you shot Mr. Rosenbaum because Joshua Zeminski had a pistol?
No.
You don't get to shoot someone else. You don't get to shoot someone else because someone else has a gun, right?
No.
But you told the crowd he had a gun, didn't you?
That's what I said.
And that wasn't true. Mr. Rosenbaum never had a gun, right?
He didn't have a gun.
Oops. Oops. And then he lies again.
Told Mr. Grosskreutz you were going to the police, right?
Yes.
And then you said, I didn't shoot anyone, right?
I can't really make out what the last part of the words were saying.
Do you remember what you said?
I remember saying, I think I said I had to.
Let's play that back 10 seconds and play it again, please.
You shot somebody? Who shot? Who shot?
Pause. Aren't your exact words, I'm going to the police, I did not shoot anyone?
That's what I remember from that night, but watching that, it sounds like I said I didn't.
That, again, was not true. You just had shot someone, correct?
I did.
Why didn't you tell the truth?
I was being chased by a mob, and I don't really remember that interaction very well.
Oh, my God. So he has told this story over and over again, that he was running to surrender himself to the police. And, of course, the truth about Kyle Rittenhouse is he never surrendered to the police until the next day. The next day, he surrendered to the police in Antioch, Illinois. He did not surrender to the police in Kenosha, Wisconsin that night. This kid has been lying and lying really hard for a really, really long time. What's really interesting is how much money he was able to fundraise off of his victimhood, where he had an AR-15, okay, and the people he shot didn't have an AR-15. One guy, Gage Krauts, tough name, he had a pistol, but he never pointed that pistol at Kyle Rittenhouse. He couldn't have, and today in the closing arguments, we saw why he couldn't have. When they walked us through the frame-by-frame encounter between Kyle Rittenhouse and Gage Grosskreutz, what you see is that Gage literally is trying with his right hand to swipe the gun away. He literally approaches Kyle Rittenhouse without a gun in his hand and comes right into the barrel of the AR that Kyle is pointing at him. He backs up, giving Kyle a chance to drop the gun, and Kyle Rittenhouse re-racks his gun, which is when Gage tries to swat the gun away. Kyle shoots him, His bicep is, what his word, vaporized. And the gun is dangling in his hand. He can't control his arm anymore, the arm that the gun is in, because this kid has just shot him and vaporized his bicep. And when you do the frame by frame, you can see that that is the order in which these things occurred, and that Kyle Rittenhouse has been lying. The idea that, you know, he had an AR and the other guy, you know, this Gage guy, had a pistol. I mean,
can you help me understand, Mr. Rittenhouse, why Gage Grosskreutz, with a pistol in his hand, is a threat to kill you, but you, with an AR-15 pointed at him, is not a threat to kill him at this moment?
Fascinating.
Can you help me understand that?
I've been attacked by several people, and he decided to come and point a gun at my head. Well, first,
He hasn't done that yet, has he?
No.
So again, I ask you, in this moment, you told us Gage Grosskreutz is a threat to you right now.
Yes.
He's got a pistol not aimed at you.
Right.
You've got an AR-15 aimed at him.
Yeah.
Why is he more of a threat to you than you are to him?
I don't know. I just felt like that. I just, you know, I'm Batman. I'm Batman. I'm a crime fighter. I'm a crime fighter / medic that doesn't give anybody medical attention / fireman with a fire extinguisher. Holy crap.
This is the Randi Rhodes Show. To speak with Randi, dial 561-270-3844. That's 561-270-3844.
All right. Yeah, the defense is doing their closing argument. They're talking right now about the murder of Mr. Huber. He's the skateboarder. And I just, as we dip in, I just want you to understand that if you bring a gun, you lose your claim to self-defense, okay? Also, there has to be a proportional response to the threat, okay? And none of that was here.
Police have an easier job because scene 1 and scene 2 would have been put in the same location. My client ran 2 blocks without shooting at anyone, pointing at anyone,
Yay!
Doing anything to try and get away. He tells the individuals he's going to the police, and he's running in that direction when he stopped. He's hitting the head with a hand with a rock in it, knocking his hat off. Mr. Binger says, oh, he just knocked his hat off. I don't think that individual was trying to steal Mr. Rittenhouse's hat. He was trying to take his head off. Who comes in next? Anthony Huber, for the first time. Hits him. Opening statement, Mr. Binger, was he takes a swing at him. Now it's he blocked because we took the videotape and lightened it up. Huber strikes him in the head and arm the first time. Jump kick man comes in, kicks him in the face, spins his body 180 degrees, and Anthony Huber comes in for the second lick to the shoulder neck area, trying to take his head off.
Oh, please.
And when he does that, his other hand goes grabbing for the gun, his bare hand onto the gun and pulling it away from Kyle Rittenhouse. Mr. Binger wants Kyle to sit there and hope and pray to God his strap works, and Anthony Huber can't get the gun. We don't know that. We'll never know that as he's running away from him. A shot as the gun is being separated from his body, and you'll see the butt way far away when the shot is finally fired. Even Gage Grosskreutz said he was concerned about the blows that Jump Kick Man and Anthony Huber were inflicting on Kyle's head. That's probably the only thing I agree with Mr. Grosskreutz. Gage Grosskreutz. The state must prove beyond a reasonable doubt that what Kyle did under those facts and circumstances was unreasonable, that he was not entitled to self-defense. Consider all the events that had occurred that evening. Him being attacked, kicked in the head, hit in the head with a skateboard, other individuals running up on him, and now Mr. Groskowitz runs up on him. And the first action of Mr. Groskowitz, and I'll go through the video later, is really he's running in, the hand is coming up, and the gunshot with Huber goes off. And the natural reaction is the flinch. He covers up. And then he pulls his hands up. And as he's standing with his hands up, look, he's not gripping the gun anymore in a pistol grip. Hands apart, hands up. And as he comes in to finish the job, the hand is on the gun going for Mr. Rittenhouse. And he says it's an involuntary movement. The shot comes before it gets directly to his head. But the motion is coming, the shot, and it continues on with that momentum.
Oh, my God.
Enough momentum to go through the bullet and point directly at Kyle's head. Does Kyle fire again? No, he doesn't.
Because he blew his arm off.
Actions likely to cause death or great bodily harm. And he is coming in with a loaded Glock. And we asked Mr. Gage Groskowitz about it. He wouldn't even admit that there was one in the chamber. That's why we had to put on the officer to talk about the unfired shell casing. Lukowski talked about clearing the weapon and a live round coming out. Because Groskowitz won't say anything that puts him in a bad light. Groskowitz, the person who has 10 million reasons to lie. And we all know he did lie.
What? He's a victim.
Because he never gave a new interview after giving his statement saying he dropped his gun going down the street. Ladies and gentlemen, those are the charges. Those are a synopsis of the charges. As I stated, the burden is on the state, and they must prove beyond a reasonable doubt that my client did not have the right to self-defense. Kyle, as he sits here, is presumed innocent of all charges. If there is any reasonable hypothesis to reconcile with Kyle's innocence, that is what you are to choose. Remember, when looking at the burden of proof, they have it. Think about some of the things, the shoddy investigation, the rush to judgment from the Kenosha District Attorney's Office, the Zeminskis not being called as witnesses. They have the burden of proof. We don't. They want it to be that Kyle was out there doing something improper. Kyle was a 17-year-old kid out there trying to help this community. He was asked to provide help in protecting property at the car sources. It started, and he did it. He did provide aid, and he was asking if anybody needed aid. Whether somebody chooses to accept that aid, that's on them. But Mr. Binger wants to poo-poo his sincere belief that he's helping people because he borrowed bandages from Dominic Black, and I think he might have borrowed something from Lukowski also. But in the picture, when the Kandiri
this is not going
all
well.
the people are going to protect his property, there's Kyle's big orange gator box. He's got his pack on, filled with things, and he's willing to do that.
Except he doesn't do it.
Ladies and gentlemen, Kyle was not an active shooter.
He was.
That is a buzzword that the state wants to lash onto because it excuses the actions of that mob on the 25th.
Are you kidding me?
2020.
This is not going well. I just, you know, we're going to have to go to a break anyway, but the kid shows up with an AR, okay? An AR. He first shoots an unarmed man who's nowhere near him, not with his hand on the barrel of his gun, not even close enough to touch his gun. And not only does he shoot Rosenbaum in the pelvis and shatter his pelvis so that he's falling to the ground, but Kyle Rittenhouse shoots him 3 more times as he's falling to the ground, so that Rosenbaum has a bullet hole in his hand, he has a bullet hole in his head, he has a bullet hole in his pelvis. Obviously, this is complete fantasy. What this defense attorney is saying. He's not an active shooter. When he shot Rosenbaum, who was unarmed, and Rosenbaum was not really close enough to do anything to Kyle Rittenhouse. Kyle Rittenhouse chooses to lie and say that Rosenbaum had a gun when he clearly knew Rosenbaum did not have a gun. That's earlier testimony. So that's why everybody thought of him as an active shooter, because he shot that guy who was shirtless. Now, the reason why he's shirtless doesn't matter. What matters is you could tell he didn't have a gun because he had no shirt on. So Kyle Rittenhouse knows that Rosenbaum is unarmed. Kyle Rittenhouse knows that he's got an AR-15. He raises his weapon to Rosenbaum. He shoots him. He hits him. And as Rosenbaum is falling, he shoots even more times. That is why Mr. Huber, the skateboarder, and Gage Grosskreutz, who is a medic, was running in that direction in the first place, and were saying and said in their, Gage is the only one that survived this, said in his testimony that he was dealing with an active shooter. And his defense is trying to say he wasn't an active shooter. What was he then? What was an AR-15 and a 17-year-old doing on that street that night? In the first place, and in the second place, why is he shooting an unarmed guy 4 times? And then you're blaming people in the crowd for thinking your client is an active shooter. This is really bad. Not as bad as the judge, which, by the way, we have to talk about this, okay? The jury instructions were given in such a crazy, first-year law student manner that if Rittenhouse is convicted, he's got grounds for an appeal because the judge literally threw the trial. He literally did do that. This is crazy. This is just madness. Combine it with the ringtone and all the other things.
Mary had a little lamb. The fault. We believe that all men are created equal.
To the magnificent mosaic that is America.
From radio beacon to radio beacon. I have a dream today. Change has come to America.
Believe me.
Help is on the way.
Knock, knock. Who's there?
It's a figment of your imagination.
Randi Rhodes Show. Turn up your mind.
All right, slow news day, everybody. Very slow. 2 trials going on. You know what's creepy? The Arbery trial is not on television. And if it is, I have no idea where. I'm going to guess HLN maybe, the D list of the channels. Very fascinating. The Rittenhouse trial was broadcast all morning on the CNN, and right now they've cut away because President Joe Biden is just about to sign the BIF. The BIF, everybody. The bipartisan infrastructure package. And there's been a lot of talk during this bill signing ceremony that's being held in the Rose Garden that this is part 1 of 2. Now, this week, the House will vote on part 2, which is the not bipartisan human infrastructure package, which will get money out the door to us for various things we need, want, and have to have. Things like the child tax credit, things like universal pre-K, things like only 7% of your income can be spent, will you come out of pocket when paying for child care as you enter back into the workforce. Things like hearing aids for senior citizens, things like that. That's the not bipartisan infrastructure package, because the bipartisan infrastructure package is for corporations. It's a bidding war, and people will go and make money off of building things for us. And in that weird private-public partnership way, we will benefit from those projects. We hope. But anyway, Pramila Jayapal indicated that the House would vote on its portion of the infrastructure, the human infrastructure package this week. Whether or not the Senate, the Mansion, and the Cinema, who spoke at this bill signing thing today, whether or not they will go along with the nonpartisan or the not bipartisan infrastructure package, it's a mystery stuffed inside a riddle, you know, shoved inside of an enigma. We have to wait and see. Now, apparently, every part of that bill that the House will vote on this week has been pre-conferenced, meaning pre-agreed to. Except that at the end of the process, Nancy Pelosi did put in a paid family leave package, and not 12 weeks. Oh, God, no. We wouldn't want to be like any other industrialized nation in this world. No, 4 weeks of paid family leave. Manchin is against paid family leave. He's also against giving us a tax credit for buying an electric vehicle. He's so married to the dirty fossil fuels. He's so married to coal, and that he literally is standing between us getting a tax credit, $12,500 for buying an electric vehicle, and us not getting a tax credit to incentivize to buy. Oh, there goes Ruth Bader Ginsburg. She just fell off the platform. I guess something's going on in the courts of law. And as all of this is going on, we have the closing argument proceeding in the Kyle Rittenhouse case, okay? The Arbery case, the audio and the video from that case is so, it's like a school board meeting. It looks like a closed caption. It looks like a closed circuit TV. That's how bad it is. But this one, they have some professional cameras. I'm guessing it's a robotic camera. But here is the defense. I'll just play you like a few minutes, and then we'll go to a break and regroup on the other side. All right.
NA expert. What I say to you is DNA is an incredibly useful tool, but DNA is only as useful as what you put into it. And if DNA shows anything, it shows that it's not proof positive in this case. We know in hearing from Dr. Kelly that he most probably touched the gun. It was a contact wound is the way he described it.
Oh my God.
We know
he's
through
literally
the videos,
just trying to disprove
Huber
DNA
touched
evidence.
the gun with his bare hand, and yet no DNA was found on that gun.
Oh my God.
So don't let your eyes deceive you.
Oh my
Don't
God.
let the physical evidence be discounted because of what she said. The end of that barrel was not swabbed.
Oh my God.
And we know he had to be at the end of the barrel, or it would have had the soot on all of the fingers. Jason Lukowski, thought was an interesting witness. He was the Marine who put the phrase, shout, shove, show, shoot. And I asked him about that, and I don't for a minute disbelieve that that's the Marines' rule. Is there any retreat in there? And he said no. He looked at me like I was stupid. The reason he looked like that was because they don't retreat. Yet Kyle Rittenhouse did retreat. He tried getting away from Mr. Rosenbaum.
This is Kenosha.
He described Joseph Rosenbaum
It's not
as
Riyadh.
belligerent, with malintent, used the N-word, did the false step thing, did not see Kyle as aggressive. He was there for a shorter period of time than anyone else at CarSource. He also cleared Gage Grosquist's gun after the shooting and made it safe, took the shell out of it. And I ask you to think back to the direct examination of Mr. Lukowski by the state. When they asked him, what did Kyle say to you? His first statement was, I just shot somebody, I need help. That's what he testified to. And then Mr. Binger shows him the statement and gets him to say, well, I told the FBI that. Ladies and gentlemen, I don't know what he told the FBI. The FBI doesn't let him see that statement, doesn't let him read the statement and say, you've read this to me, it's true in a correct copy. They write down what they think they heard.
Oh my God.
I ask you to think about what he said. If he didn't shoot somebody, why does he need help? That makes no sense. He said it, he testified to it, that's what happened. The state confronted him and pushes him back to his original statement so he doesn't get in trouble.
Oh, my God.
He put the tourniquet on Gage Grosskreutz. He testified that he had his AR-15 with him, providing medical services, first aid, just like Kyle Rittenhouse.
Oh, my God.
And I find it so ironic that he was there. Gage Grosskreutz had said to them, "Go home, we have our own medics, you stooges." And who ultimately helps him with his tourniquet? Sarah Hughes, her testimony.
Okay, I mean, this is pretty. It's pretty painful. So that is the defense for Kyle Rittenhouse, saying don't believe DNA evidence that clearly shows no contact with the barrel of the gun. Believe whatever you want to believe. We have impeached Kyle Rittenhouse as a truth teller over and over again. That's why I played those clips where he's lying and is caught in the lie under oath, right, by the prosecution, by the state. Because now the defense is arguing, no, don't believe the FBI either. Believe Kyle. Kyle is a truth teller. This is very painful. This is bizarre. But remember, the judge has screwed this trial, screwed this pooch so hard, so badly, that when there's a conviction, and I believe there will be a conviction, I don't know on which charges, I have no idea. You would not know unless you were a part of the jury and in those conversations. When they arrive at their verdict, after that, they will explain, maybe a week later, maybe right after, it's up to them, how they got to their verdict. But no matter what, this is going to be appealed, and an appeal looks at the process. That's what the appeal is for, to look at the judging, to look at the judgment that the judge made, to look at the process under which he was convicted, under which he was tried. This is not going to stand up.
All things Randi at RandiRhodes.com.
Go for launch.
Speaking truth to power, the Randi Rhodes Show.
Oh my God, this defense attorney just told the jury not to believe the police officer that testified either, who said it wasn't really chaotic down there. The crowd had been, essentially cleared out. And he just told them, don't believe him either. It was hell. It was hell down there. What kind of a defense is this?
Exception to the search warrant, even though they had a signed search warrant by a judge of Kenosha County. He was also an armed medic. Wants you to believe that he didn't have one in the chamber and he would never shoot somebody. But before he said that, he said key, wallet, phone, gun. Never leaves the home without them. Ladies and gentlemen, I don't carry a concealed weapon. And I don't think I could shoot somebody. But when people carry guns, that's what they're for in the city. This isn't the wild, wild west. He had his gun.
It is.
Kyle Rittenhouse had run by him. You'll see the picture. Was by him, gone. Did he go to give medical help? He didn't know that Mr. Rosenbaum was being tended to. No, he decided to run in and advance on the fray. He, affiliated with the American People's Revolution here in Wisconsin. And I might have that one word wrong, but he did it. And who ultimately put the tourniquet and fixed it on his arm? But Mr. Lukowski, a member of somebody he refers to as the militia and the Stooges. Two different encounters between Gage Grosskreutz and my client. The first one, he does not show or give any indication of a weapon. My client does not point a weapon at him, does not shoot at him, does not swipe the weapon towards him. He states he's going to the police. That is uncontradicted. Why doesn't Mr. Grosskreutz let him be and go give aid and comfort to his fellow rioter?
Right.
But instead, he joins the mob, chasing Kyle, arms himself, and runs in the fifth or sixth person into the melee in scene 2. And when his friend was called, his friend said in his Facebook post his only regret was not emptying the clip into the kid. So we know what his intent was. We know what he wanted to do. Kyle shot first as he was coming in. And Mr. Binger talks about, oh, he was going to grab the gun. Ladies and gentlemen, left hand, phone. How's he going to grab a gun with a hand filled with a phone? Right hand, gun. He goes back, loads up, and is advancing. That's when Kyle shoots him. He didn't shoot him when he put his hands up.
Oh, yes,
and if
he
that
did.
was it, no intent to harm him, all he does, like everybody else, is back up, and nobody else gets shot. But Mr. Groskowitz decides he's going to shoot my client. Unfortunately, my client shot him first. If he had retreated, it's over. And when he's got his hand up like this, as I said earlier, the hands are up. It's not gripping the gun, it's loose. But when he goes in like this, the pistol grip is tight. Heather Williams, Crime Lab, she testified that the gun works. I have no dispute regarding that.
No.
Detective Krieger, he was in the passenger seat of Moretti's car, pepper sprayed, did not get his ID, didn't ask him about the gun, just told him to go home. Kristen Harris, Rundown Live, stated the video, we showed the video to start this, clearly depicting Mr. Rosenbaum standing there at Car Source 2 shortly after the dumpster, standing there with his chain, the shirt tied up over his head. But Mr. Binger says it's impossible for him to have threatened my client. That's garbage, just like his case.
Oh, my God.
And Mr. Binger makes so much out of him one time saying, stay on your property. My client has as much right to go anywhere
Oh, my God.
in downtown Kenosha as anyone else.
With an AR.
Just as the rioters did.
An illegal
and
one.
as he walks out to see if anybody wants medical help, he's not doing anything wrong. He's not doing anything to provoke anybody.
What? He's wearing an AR-15. Like an accessory.
Detective Antaramian, the juxtaposition of him and Howard, as I said, he is the one who talks about what he sees in the video, totally different. As you see, why did Mr. Rosenbaum go behind that car, 2 cars over from the Zeminskis? What was he doing over there? Why was he doing over there? And why does he come out as soon as Kyle comes down the road? Because they were going to ambush him. They had set it up, and I'll show you the video.
You do that. Show the video.
James Armstrong.
He's not going to show the video.
The only thing I can...
Okay, he's going to go through every single witness and tell the jury whether to believe that witness or don't believe that witness, whether they're a police officer or they're a DNA, analyst or, a DNA expert. If the conclusion of that witness goes against his position to defend Kyle Rittenhouse, then he's going to instruct the jury, don't believe the science. Don't believe something I'm telling you. This is bizarre. This whole trial has been bizarre. And listen, the main takeaway from this trial, this one, is if you're not disgusted with this kid, that he has an AR-15 with him illegally, that he leaves Illinois and goes to Wisconsin, knowing, because he saw on the TV, that he was going into a volatile, literally explosive situation in Kenosha, and he chooses to go there with an illegal AR-15, stops and buys a body strap for it. Why would you do that? Because he expects he's going to be, let's just say it this way. This is the least violent way, that he'll be jostled around or something in this melee in this crowd, right? And so he wants a body strap for his weapon. He buys it there in Kenosha and then inserts himself at this, used car dealership, Auto Source, right? He inserts himself there. Now, what you may or may not know is that the owners, Sam and Sal, of these used car dealerships, they testified that they did not ask Kyle Rittenhouse to protect their property. In fact, they weren't there. They weren't protecting their own property. But they said that they did not even ask him to do this. This kid has lied the whole time.
Call in, connect. To speak to Randi, call 561-270-3844. 561-270-3844.
And I promised that we couldn't just build back to what it was before. We literally had to build back better. You couldn't build back. We're the only country that's always come out of great crises stronger than we went in. And the world has changed, and we have to be ready. My fellow Americans today, I want you to know we hear you and we see you. The bill I'm about to sign along is proof that despite the cynics, Democrats and Republicans can come together and deliver results. We can do this. We can deliver real results for real people. We see in ways that really matter each and every day to each person out there. And we're taking a monumental step forward to build back better as a nation.
So that was Biden in the Rose Garden, and he just signed the bipartisan hard infrastructure. I don't know what else to call it. It's, the bipartisan BIF package, $1.2 trillion. This one goes to all of this deferred maintenance stuff that we knew was broken in America for 30 years and never bothered to repair. So this will go for public transportation. This goes to roads. This goes to bridges, ports, railways, grids, broadband internet, water, sewage, lead pipe replacement, etc. It's a nice start. I want to see the human infrastructure package because that package will get cash dollars into families' bank accounts so that they can deal with the rising costs that are caused by Donald Trump's handling or mishandling or lying about COVID, so that it became out of control in this country to the point of people on their own deciding to quit their jobs, deciding not to go to work, deciding not to go back to work, even when it was possible to go back to work because their employers weren't protecting them, or because their employers couldn't reopen the store, or because their employers were running shops that were, not compliant with face masking or with vaccinations or any of the tools that we have to fight this pandemic now, because it was so mismanaged by Donald Trump. And we know that because there's an article today that talks about there's a couple articles today you should read. One is about almost 4.4 million people quit their jobs in September. That's on top of the 4.4 million people that quit their job in August. You're talking about almost 6-7% of our working economy quitting in August and September, just literally saying, I want to live. Talk about, self-defense, right? I want to live, and not going back to work for various reasons that I just named. The other thing that you need to understand is that there's an article in the Homework today that clearly shows that Donald Trump was telling Alex Azar, was telling Birx, Little Debbie, he was telling all these health professionals to not give the advice that was required in order to beat back COVID early. And some of that advice was, if you're not symptomatic, Donald Trump wanted them to say, if someone isn't symptomatic, they don't need to get tested. And that was false. And he knew it, and they knew it. Okay? Now, Birx, I don't know what her deal was. She knew all this and stood up. Dr. Messonnier, who is the primary source for these pieces of information, she quit. She quit. So this pandemic that we had did not have to be as bad as it was. Number two, people got so frightened that their employers were, like politically involved in their position on COVID that they just didn't want to go back to work. They just quit their jobs. And so we have lost about 10%, 8.5% of our workforce. So that creates bottlenecks, meaning that creates all these weak links in our supply chain. And as I've told you a billion times now in this career of mine, you're only as strong as the weakest among you. You're only as strong as your weakest link, right? And so if there aren't truck drivers out there, if there aren't people at the ports, if there aren't people in warehouses to take the stuff from the ships and put it in a warehouse, if we have kinks in the supply chain, then we have what we know as a bottleneck. And things don't get to you the way that we're so spoiled and used to them getting to us. And so then on Friday, we have this article from the Wall Street Journal from end of October, saying corporate America is betting that Americans will pay even more for the products. They are betting that you will pay more for the products that have been marketed to you than seeing you buy generic brands, because they haven't been marketed to you. Another thing you need to understand is local is good, and that's another thing that Build Back Better seeks to do. It creates hubs for manufacturing. It creates, farm-to-table sort of environments. So we don't have to watch the judge in the Rittenhouse case opine that his Chinese food may be coming from Asia and stuck on a ship in the port of Long Beach. Ha, 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 ha. See what I mean? So we have to invest money in America if America is going to be able to serve and service Americans. Something that did not get done in the last 30 damn years. Now, I'm sure that it could have gotten done in the Obama administration had you not freaked out after the first year and voted in a Republican majority, killing any chance we had of building anything in this country. And now the feeling is, people are going to do it again. People are going to do it again. In 2022, they're going to do it again. Plus, the gerrymandering is nearly complete, and they've added, Republican seats here and gerrymandered Democratic seats out of existence over there. So much is going on to defeat progress in this country. So much. Now, why are the Republicans so invested in process? Why are they so invested in gerrymanders? Why are they so invested in not denouncing violence? Why are they so? Because they have nothing else going for them. That's why. And they can't piss off the 30% of Americans who were surveyed last month, who said they believe, 30% of Americans do, that they may need to get violent to save America. 30%. There's always going to be that 30%. I've told you this a million times too. There's always going to be 30% of Americans who are racist, 30% of Americans who believe in violence over diplomacy, or believe in violence over legislation, or believe in violence over voting, believe in violence over everything. And we're never going to get rid of those 30. What you do want to see, though, is Republican leadership tell those 30, violence isn't going to get you anywhere. You will go to jail. Instead of rallying around a 17-year-old boy who illegally took a gun to what he knew was a volatile situation and ended up shooting 3 people, 2 of them to death, and 1 just blew his arm off, or a portion of his arm off. Because how could that have ended any other way? It couldn't. 17-year-olds with ARs never end well. Ask any school.
This is the Randi Rhodes Show. To speak with Randi, dial 561-270-3844. That's 561-270-3844.
Will there be a vote on Build Back Better, as promised in that agreement, this coming week?
I believe there will be, Jonathan. It's not the CBO score that we're waiting for. The 6 Democrats that we made a written agreement with and that publicly committed to us and to the President of the United States that they would vote on this bill pending agreement on top lines for the score, or not the score, but the fiscal information that would come from the CBO and the information that was already provided by the White House. That's really all we're waiting for. We're not waiting for a full score. Good. So I do believe that we will have a vote this week on the Build Back Better Act. It will go to the Senate, and then it will be up to the Senate Democrats and the president, who gave us his commitment that he believed that he could get this across the finish line in the form that that the framework was presented. So yes is the short answer. We will have a vote this week.
So we will have a vote this week, which is important because next week is Thanksgiving week and they will be on recess again. Great job if you can get it. All right. Justin in California.
Hey, Randy. How you doing?
Good.
So, this Rittenhouse trial, there's something that people aren't really grasping on this, and it's the fact of written into Wisconsin state law is a provision that says you cannot use self-defense as justification while in the act of committing a crime. And, I was when I was watching this, I was kind of leery of this judge allowing, the defense to kind of lay the groundwork for self-defense. So what he did today, right before closing arguments, he kicked that charge out.
Yeah.
So now they are free, they are open to use self-defense as justification. And if it only takes one juror to buy it, and he walks. But, I find it kind of stunning that he did that this morning before closing arguments. And once, he made that ruling, it kind of made it crystal clear in my mind that the fix is in for sure. Because now the prosecution can't say, they can't, there's nothing they can do to prevent the defense from, admitting self-defense as justification of murder. And, personally, I think he's going to walk. But, and I know it's really hard to overcome. I think that the prosecution should retry him again. And I know double jeopardy attaches, but if you look at this, he was never in jeopardy of being convicted based upon what the judge did. So, I'm not really sure how it's going to play out, but this judge is beyond biased.
Okay. So there's a lot there that you just said. So the reason why the gun charge, meaning a 17-year-old with a long gun, was kicked out was not for any reason except that in Wisconsin law, the length, I swear to God, the length of your gun.
Oh, God, are you kidding me?
No, I'm not. The length of your gun actually matters. And Kyle's was too short to be considered.
That's not surprising, okay?
To be considered a semi, like an assault style weapon, okay? And so he, as a 17-year-old, couldn't be charged with that crime of carrying that weapon illegally. That's why that charge got kicked out. So let's just, be real clear about that one. The other thing that you said about double jeopardy, if he is acquitted, there is no retrial possible under any law in this here country. But number 3, my view is he will be convicted of something because they won on Friday the ability to say that Kyle Rittenhouse provoked this whole chain of events by showing up in Kenosha with an AR-15 as an accessory, like wearing it. And that, yes, he was seen as an active shooter, et cetera, et cetera. Now, he is going to be convicted of something. I don't know whether it'll be first degree or reckless homicide or what, or second degree homicide. And what's going to happen is the defense will appeal and they will prevail because the judge was so bizarre.
Yeah, well, but the judge obviously is an advantage for the defense.
And then you would have a retrial.
So a retrial there, but couldn't the feds come in and charge him because there's no double jeopardy clause for a federal crime as opposed to a state crime? But then one more question.
What are you talking about? The defense doesn't charge anybody. The defense defends against
No, I'm sorry, not the defense. Couldn't the feds come in?
The feds.
The federal government come in and charge Kyle Rittenhouse under federal law?
With what?
Killing these people?
No.
I don't know.
No.
So the feds couldn't take this case over no matter what?
Well, that's not no matter what, but not for murder. No, it's a state charge.
Wow. And so, okay, back to something you said. So now I understand, the rifle was too short. That's kind of amazing. But didn't he illegally cross state lines with that weapon?
So crossing state lines with a weapon that isn't illegal isn't a crime. And the gun was declared to be something a 17-year-old could carry in Wisconsin. I don't know what Illinois law is, but
that's just staggering. I mean, these gun laws are. I mean,
I'm telling you,
it's staggering.
But that's what the gun lobby does. That's what they work on. That's what they.
No, I know.
That's their whole gig. That's their whole wheelhouse.
It's crazy to me that we have these laws in place, and
what
if this was a person.
What is true is that he did acquire the gun in an illegal way. It's not his. It wasn't his gun. It was bought for him by this black dude, this guy named Black, and it was, done that way because he wasn't able to buy it legally in Illinois. But in Wisconsin, he was allowed to carry a gun of that length.
That's just so crazy because it's illegal for him to buy it in one state, but he can legally possess an illegal weapon in another state.
How do you think all the guns get into Chicago in the first place? I know.
Right,
they have very strict gun laws, and they bring them in over state lines. Same thing in New York. New York has very strict gun laws, but they bring them in, from Connecticut, or they bring them in from New Jersey.
Yeah.
Right.
And they sell them at gun shows where there's no background checks, and that's a whole other story. But
right, but that's not this case.
That's not the case here. But I just. I just find it amazing that we're even having this type of debate with what the evidence that prosecution has.
So what you should really hone in on is that America should be disgusted with this kid's behavior, but they're not.
Oh, of course.
And there's a part of America, about 30% of Americans, that not only aren't disgusted with the lack of parenting or the ability to get the gun or the ability to, go there and make a decision to be provoking, to be provocative, meaning you're carrying an AR-15 around your neck, lying, saying you're an EMT. Somebody called and asked, did he have any training as an EMT? No, he didn't. And that was exposed in this trial, too, that he lied about being an EMT. He told everyone at that protest he was an EMT. He lied about being an EMT. He is not an EMT. He has no medical training. Okay, he's a degenerate liar, this kid. But people should be disgusted with him. And the thing that should really F with our brains is that 30% of America not only aren't disgusted with him, but they want to elevate him into Batman. They want to make him a hero. Some want to make him into a superhero. Okay? That's the scary part of this whole thing. Otherwise, it's just a murder trial. Another murder trial. Another underage kid murdering somebody. We have it with school shooters. We have, look what happened at, Sandy Hook. Look what happened at, with the church, right, in Virginia. These things. It's disgusting. It's unbelievable what kids and guns produce for our society, and still we don't do anything about it. But the idea that we have 30% of this country that wants to turn him into a hero, because they view people who disagree with the protesters not just as people who disagree with them about justice reform or police reform needing to take place. Whether you agree with that or not, they view people who agree with that statement, that justice reform needs to take place regarding policing, they view those people as their enemies. And if you watch Fox News or any right-wing news outlet to get your primary source of news into your head, you not only think of people who disagree with you as your enemy, you think of them as filth. You think of them as vermin. you think of them as people that need to die. That is what Fox News is selling with regard to a whole host of issues, but especially this Rittenhouse issue. And that is why the National Guard is on standby in Kenosha pending a verdict in this trial.